Thank you. Good morning, Commissioner.
Morning.
And your team. So since, if I understand your testimony, something like 92% of the police department's budget is for personnel services, and since this council, in pushing for first 1,000 new cops, which ended up being 1,300 new cops, understands that part of reforming policing in the city means ensuring that we've got the appropriate number of police officers, that they are properly compensated, trained, et cetera. I want to focus on those issues. And I'm going to start with an anecdote. I don't know if it's an anecdote, a little story. When Albert Carvalho, our school's chancellor for a moment, was hired, he was offered $345,000 a year salary, which was $118,000 higher than Chancellor Farina was getting, and the mayor was questioned about that. And the mayor explained that it was important for the chancellor's salary to be competitive with other school districts around the country. Specifically, he said, quote, "In other cities around the country, including much smaller cities, the salary levels are much higher for the head of the school system." And then the mayor's spokesman, Eric Phillips, expanded on this point, saying that Carvalho's salary offer was, quote, "in line with what big city systems are paying, and we wanted the best." So let's start with a basic foundational question. Do you agree that police officers are entitled to the same standard at looking at other jurisdictions when it comes to setting their compensation?
I agree that police officers should be treated fairly and they should be compensated at the rate. There's a couple things going on here, and it has to be what the city can afford to, and they're in the middle of collective bargaining right now, so that's what they're trying to work out.
Now, I understand that there are many factors that might go into it, and we all agree that police officers should be treated fairly. But you were a police officer long before you were rose through the ranks and now a commissioner. Do you agree that one of the factors in determining what a New York City police officer should get paid should include looking at compensation in other jurisdictions?
I mean, that's something that has to be looked at. Of course, we have to be paid fairly. And just to go back to the chairman's point, we just don't want to make sure that we're losing people to other police agencies. I know that being an NYPD cop means a lot to the 36,000 uniformed members of the service, but they also have to be compensated correctly. I understand that.
Okay.
As does my executive staff. I mean, as far as compensation.
Sure. And I'm sure you're aware of the tremendous disparity that exists. May I have a few more minutes, Mr. Chair? The tremendous disparity that exists even between police organizations that operate in New York City. The data that I have, which I got from the Police Officers Union, has a 20-year average compensation of a Port Authority police officer making $115,000 a year, a state trooper in New York City making $112,000 a year, MTA officer making $101,000 a year, a New York City police officer, 20-year average, makes only $89,000 a year. And the data that I have indicates that, talk about keeping good police officers, there's been a significant increase in the number of resignations from the department. These are folks not who've reached their 20 or 25 years, but people who've left early. And that those numbers have gone up each year in the de Blasio administration. They've gone up 100% from the last year of the Bloomberg administration. And do you believe that better compensation in other New York City and nearby jurisdictions has played a role in these increased resignations?
I'm going to ask Chief Bill Morris, our Chief of Personnel. Bill, do you have those numbers? If not, we're going to have to get them to you, and I'm going to have to take a look at it. Bill?
Yeah, I'm Bill Morris. I'm the Chief of Personnel. I don't have the figures with me about resignations, but we can get them for you and we can provide them.
Well, I appreciate that. And it's my understanding when folks resign, when cops resign, there's some kind of exit form.
Yes, sir, there is.
And that exit form indicates where they're going next. Like if a cop is resigning to go to Nassau County or the the MTA. Is that indicated in their form, and you have that data?
Yes, sir. I sign every single one of them, so we can provide that to you.
Got it. We would like to get that data. Obviously, redacting officers' individual names, but just for an understanding of where people are going. But in terms of the resignations that are happening, whether there are more in the last few years or the same as it's always been, and I think the data will show that there's more. Does the fact that other jurisdictions like Nassau County, or even within New York City, the agencies that I mentioned, pay so much more than the NYPD does, is that a factor in folks resigning from the NYPD and going to work in those jurisdictions?
I think we'd have to take a look at the data that we have and the forms that Bill sees. And I appreciate, Councilman, you acknowledging the value of NYPD police officers. I've been a cop, although not a cop anymore, wearing that uniform for 35 years. So I appreciate what you're saying here. And my job as the police commissioner and the job of the executive staff is to make sure that we have a police department that is motivated, and we've asked them to do a lot over the last 3 years, specifically with neighborhood policing.
Got it.
So thank you for what you said. We are always looking to make sure that we are compensated properly, and as I said before, this is a matter of collective bargaining, and we're in that process right now.